Hello everyone and welcome for another cube draft here at the Manabase. You can check out our website, YouTube channel and Facebook page. Links will be down below in the description. And also feel free to look for other content creators at the Manabase. There's plenty of sweet things to be seen there, whether you want to read article, watch videos, if you like limited, constructed or even more, just check that out. Now onto this draft. Most powerful card is probably Treachery, which is a very strong blue card, among the best in the cube. Very good in Legacy Cube, a little bit weaker in Vintage Cube, still pretty good. Memory Jar is a sweet one, especially if you end up playing Storm. Durgo is pretty good if you want to go for the mono red or any red based burn deck. And Shadow Kyle is a very good card too. I'm just gonna go with Treachery. It's just solid, efficient card, and I really don't mind playing blue. There's Mana Vault here, which is quite great. Quite busted mana artifact. Mana Vault is sometimes as good as a Mox or a Black Lotus, even sometime. It is weaker most of the time, but it is still a very powerful and unique effect. I'd rather have Sol Ring, of course, but you often don't need to activate it that much when you get such a lot of mana early on. Balance is a sweet one, but you need a decent amount of artifact to make it good, basically. But if it wheels somehow, that could be nice. Not a big fan of Shackles, especially in Vintage Cube. There's not that many small creature or medium-sized creature. Misty Rainforest could be an option. Do like Duress and any discard effect in Vintage Cube, but Mana Vault is just the best card here. I think so far it's not even very controversial or anything. The two cards we picked were just legitimately the best cards. Here it's a little bit more complicated, I guess. You could go with Dragonlord archetype, pretty sweet finisher. Works quite well with Mana Vault if you can power that up turn 2. It's really nice, and it's also has some protection, because the risk is obviously spending, that to cast something and they somehow can use a Rimvol or deal with it quickly. Not really where you want to be, but archetype is pretty nice. We could just pick a Verve Flowing Chalice, which is solid, I'd rather pick a Blue Signet, but this is quite good too. And we could go towards, an artifact heavy deck maybe. We could maybe will that Balance, who knows. Metamorph is pretty good too, it's another option. I think I'm just gonna go with some more mana. But, I think Metamorph is a very fine pick. Ojutai, if you like this card, you can pick it. I definitely like it a lot, but you don't have to go white here. It definitely has a cost. Volcanic Island is pretty interesting. We'll already have a blue card. Any blue dual land could be interesting. Batterskull could be a decent pick if we want to stay open, It is just colorless. Thirst is a card I like quite a lot, especially when I start to have a couple of artifacts in my deck. I think these are the three best options. Had we taken Dragonlord or Jutai, I could see picking Verdict here, but yeah. That's pretty close. I think I'm gonna go with Batterskull, mostly because it's a pretty unique effect that you can put in any deck. I just say that and we get past the Wormcoil Engine, which is also pretty unique. In the sense that these are two artifacts, so you can play these in any deck that gives you some big life linker. And, mono red burn and aggressive deck are definitely a concern in Vintage Cube. So having these in the main or in the side can help you a lot. Against more aggressive deck. Definitely like Wormcoil Engine more than Batterskull in general, but both are interesting. Now I do like Impulse quite a bit, but I'm just gonna pick engine here, and I think in the, if I remember correctly, in the booster we opened and where we first pick treachery, there was a Mishra workshop, and if we can wield that, we might just be able to build a very sweet artifact deck. However, if it doesn't wield, probably means someone else is interested in artifact at the table, which could make things a little bit more complicated. Not really interested in anything here. The best card is probably Vortex for the mono red deck. Search I like when I'm playing Storm. I don't really like it with mana artifact and in non-Storm deck, or I guess it's pretty good in Remit or 2 as a discard outlet. Otherwise, I don't really like that. Legionnaire a little bit too aggressive. I'm just gonna pick Shores in case we end up playing black for some reason. I mean, we might not even be blue to be honest, but shall see. Mesafit is quite underrated, I think. It's not very good if you are playing an aggressive deck, but it's not that easy to have a good aggressive deck in a Vintage Cube, and there will probably only be one mono red player, maybe one base white aggro player at the table. And in any other deck, it's pretty good. Like, it's even decent in Storm, even though you need quite a bit of mana, because it can buy you quite a bit of time. It's pretty solid in control. It's fairly underrated, I believe. Now, I'm not sure I'm gonna pick it here. I'm probably just go with Venter, which I do like quite a bit. Definitely like it more than Commit Memory. Do love Time Spiral, but not gonna pick it here. Even if we end up with a heavy artifact deck, the disc is not very good as it blows up all artifact. It's kind of a non-bow, not really where you want to be. Cast out could be an option. If Ojutai wheels somehow, I'd be happy to have a cast out around. I'm just Frost Titan is fine though, and it's on color, so I guess we'll just pick that. The jar wheeled, but the workshop did not wheel. Interesting. Might just pick Ludorilcore Core in case we wheel the Buried Alive and maybe Reanimator is open somehow. I guess Jar is pretty good with a bunch of mana acceleration though. So we don't have a lot right now, but we might get some more. Again, not a big fan of Shackles. Dragon Lord Ojutai did not wheel, so I'm not sure about going blue-white control and picking Wall of Almond. I could imagine picking Lotus Bloom actually, and maybe trying to build a Storm deck. Oh, Ojutai was in this pack actually. I lied. Well, then I'm gonna pick it here, I guess, and probably not go Storm, not today. Verdict wheeled too. Okay, well, I guess we'll just be blue-white. This wheeled? Impulse wheeled? Impulse is a great card. That's surprising. Alright. No one's playing mono red? Okay. So, blue-white with some mana acceleration. Well, that's not bad. The only thing I'm not super happy about, well, it's not a big deal to be honest, but when you are playing blue-white control, it's one of the deck that's actually not that doesn't need cards like Batterskull and Wormcoil Engine as much, because you have other ways to gain life in white. You have Face Feathers, maybe you can have Baneslayer Angel, Gisela. I mean, there are quite a bit of life gain option in white if you want. And Batterskull and Wormcoil Engine that I picked fairly high actually are a little bit more necessary when you are playing blue-black control, for example, where you don't have a ton of ways to gain life, and you know they also works kind of well if you end up playing something like Bitter Blossom or a couple card draw spells that deals damage to you. In any case, I think the two best options here are Daze and Gideon. Absent is decent, but I'd rather pick Gideon. I do like Daze more than most people, but I really believe Counterspell are very important to be able to play control in Vintage Cube. And Daze is just pretty good. I think it's more important than Gideon Shira. And right now we do have quite a bit of 5-drops already, so I'd rather pick something that can interact with the early game. Um, Interesting. Bribery is pretty much hit or miss, but it's pretty good. I'm not gonna pick it here. I think I'd rather have Elfpath as a late game threat. It costs one more, but it's a little bit more reliable. I believe the pick is probably Signet though. Uncolored Signet are just great. Can't really go wrong with these. And it looks like we already have a decent late game. I'd be much happier with Elfpath instead of Frost Titan, but you know, it doesn't really matter which one I have at the end of the day. It's not a big deal. Whereas, and I know I already have one. Whereas, Signet is quite unique and important to the early game of this deck, most likely. As much as I like these, I'm not a big fan of Force Spike. Cloud Skate, I think, is a little bit too weak for Vintage Cube. It's not bad, but it's not my favorite. I kind of want to pick Dak Faden, honestly, and see if I can splash for red, because Dak Faden is just amazing. Everyone's playing a bunch of Signet most of the time, and or cheap busted artifact. It is just quite great. I'm just gonna pick that. Hope we can wheel Mesa, though it seems unlikely. And yeah, that's gonna be Dak. And if we don't get enough fixing to play Dak Faden, well, whatever. I mean, it'd be what it be. So now we have a pretty interesting pick because, well, I don't really care about Brimaz or Archangel. I would be happy to have at least one Oblivion Ring effect in my deck. The best one being probably Conceal's Judgment, the one that doesn't target and lets you kill things like True Name Nemesis or Inkwell Leviathan and whatnot. However, I really want at least one or maybe two O-Ring effects in my deck, and we already passed Cast Out, so we'll not get that one. However, fixing is really important, and cost is a pretty good piece of fixing. So I guess there's also a half on color Signet, which could be interesting. I think the coast might wield just because we wield Ojutai and Verdict, but I'm just gonna pick it. I really don't wanna not wheel it, basically. Also, by not picking O-Ring, I leave, 3 white cards in the back. And if there is, for example, another white player at the draft table that's, who is playing white, a more aggressive white deck, he might be more interested in Brimaz or the Angel. Stoneforge Mystic is quite decent once you have a better skull, so I'm just gonna pick that. Don't really care about anything else anyways. I do love Mana Leak. I would like to have Pass to Exile in my deck too, but it's probably not gonna wheel, but whatever. I mean, hopefully we can get a Swords to Plowshare maybe. But I do believe Mana Leak is a little bit stronger and more important than Path. I haven't played a lot with Reflector Mage yet. It seems like a fine card. It's decent against aggro, fine against Reanimator, pretty good against green deck potentially if you can bounce Mana Accelerant. And then by the time they get to recast it, it's not really useful anymore. Warder is main deckable, I believe, in Vintage Cube. Again, there's a ton of good artifact and a couple strong enchantments. Brainstorm, unless I'm playing a ton of fetches, I don't really like, so I'll just pick Mage. Also, if we end up playing some more equipment, which we might, like if we get a really good one like Cheetah or Sword of Feast and Famine or Fire and Ice, having more creatures will be good because obviously equipment needs creature to be useful. So here we could either pick Wingmare as an option against Storm, or Polluted Delta in case we get a blue-white land to fetch, or maybe a blue-red land to fetch if we want to splash for Dak Faden. I think fixing is a little bit better and more important. Absent I will definitely play I think it's quite underrated, a pretty efficient removal. We do have quite a bit of fixing for black somehow. We got the shores. Now I'm probably gonna pick courtyard here. But we actually want fixing for red, if possible. Actually, I'm gonna pick the Angel. Angel is not something I want to main deck, but I think it's a pretty great option against mono green deck that don't really have a lot of removal. I mean, I might be underrating it. It seems a bit slow though. Oblivion Ring Wield, which is great. Nothing we really care about here. I've been pretty happy with Bring to Light in my Storm deck. This card has really overperformed for me so far. It's definitely archetype dependent, but yeah, it's been pretty good. It's been really solid. Okay, so we have a Dak Faden that we kind of want to play. A little bit of fixing for black somehow. And I guess a Black Lotus now. Yeah. Well, cool, I mean, I don't mind that. I think Black Lotus is... well, it's great in Storm. Well, it's great in any deck, but I do like it quite a bit in control deck, because sometimes the issue is that you are a little bit slow, and if you can go turn to sorry, turn to a Jutai, or even turn 1 if we have both Volt and Black Lotus. I mean, turn 1 a big threat or Planeswalker, and then you protect it with counter spells and removal, it really gets out of hand. Whereas sometimes you will just go with your mono red deck, Black Lotus, Mountain, Hell Rider turn 1, which is great, it's really good, but sometimes they just have a removal, and it's, you know, you just get 2 for 1, it's not that big of a deal, but I've been very happy with Black Lotus in control decks. In any case, I mean, I'd be happy to play Muldrifter, but there's not really anything that will compete with the Lotus here, obviously. Ooh, that's a kind of a tough one. There's a bunch of cards I do like here, actually. There's a Plateau, which, if we want to splash for Dak Faden, could be interesting, but maybe I'm just gonna hope to wheel it. Sacred Foundry did not wheel a couple packs ago, though. Not a big fan of Elesh Norn. Portal is very good. I would be happy to add it to the deck, especially since I don't have a lot of card draw right now, but it's not really the peak here. It's definitely between Colonnade and Archmage. I love both cards, really. I think Colonnade is more likely gonna wheel though, so I'm gonna go with Archmage, which is just amazing. But it's pretty close. Also, Archmage is another creature which again could be relevant if we play some more artifact for the Stoneforge Mystic. Oh, this is another really tough one. So I have a couple irrelevant cards like Linvalas and Titan Gush. I don't think these are interesting. And we have Mystic Confluence, which is really good. This card has impressed me a lot in pretty much any deck. And then Fountain, which is a great piece of fixing that we can fetch with Delta. Again, I think Fountain is more likely going to wheel than Confluence, but yeah, it's really close. Confluence is just amazing, though. This card has really impressed me a lot. Sword of Light and Shadow is probably the worst sword in the cube. It's like really bad. I don't like that. Unless you are a dedicated mid-range deck with a ton of creature. And even then, it's a little bit too conditional and not so good. The only good thing with this sword is that white and black are the colors with the most removal, so it is pretty good at protecting creature. The effect is just a little bit lackluster, though. In any case, Counterspell is great. We'll just pick that. I don't think it's even close to something else. And even if there was a good sword or a GT, I would still pick Counterspell. By the way. I do like Hero of Bleedhold quite a lot. Applies a lot of pressure for not a lot of mana. Feels like a card that should have cost 5. It's really powerful and kills very fast. However, I believe Snapcaster Mage is probably going to be better here. It's looking pretty nice with a couple 2-mana counter spell, Daze, Force Spike maybe and whatnot. Okay, that Geist is pretty good. There's also Riemann and Ponder actually, and I like both cards. They also make this might wheel too. And right now, yeah, I think I might actually pick Ponder. It's just great. And what we want, the deck is just looking powerful. We have enough Rimwall. We have a very good sweeper. We have quite a bit of counterspell. We have enough finisher. What we need is just make sure we have consistent draw and we don't have mana issues or flood and scrutiny issues. And Ponder helps quite a bit regarding that. Also pretty good with Snapcaster Mage. I think we'll just pick that. Probably not main decking Force Spike, by the way. Caracas is great addition to the deck mana base. It can just save you. It can win game on its own. Weirdly enough, I would consider picking that pretty high, even if I'm not white. And when you are playing white, it is really free. I guess you can get wastelanded, but that's about it. Things would be a decent option for the side, but I think we are looking pretty good in the life gain department, so can just afford to pick Caracas here. Again, I think we have a decent amount of life gain, and I don't really like Exalted Angel. It's a sideboard option though. I don't think we need more 2-drop and more mana acceleration. I don't think we need Signets here. So Mox Diamond is decent too, but this deck doesn't have a ton of card draw, and without card draw, that Mox Diamond is always a bit risky and sometimes clunky. So it's basically between Misstep and Angel for the side. I don't like Angel a lot, but I still think it's a better sideboard option. We have a ton of ways to gain life. I'm gonna pick Leyline of Sanctity, which helps you against Storm. Like sometimes they just have Tendrils of Agony and Brain Freeze as win condition, and Leyline just deals with both win condition pretty efficiently. Plateau Wield. Hopefully some blue-white land will wheel. I think this was the pack with Colonnades, and we did not wheel it. Gonna pick Needle for my side. Oh, looks like we will none of the blue-white land, which is really sad. Probably not gonna splash for Dark Faden then. I don't have a lot of fixing, and I have enough playable. It's just not really worth it. We have a Signet, we have a Black Lotus, we have one blue-white land, so the mana base is not gonna be awful, but I wish it would have been a little bit better. Is it worth playing Stoneforge Mystic just for the Batterskull? I'm not entirely sure. I think I'd rather play Hero of Bladehold, which is just stronger on its own, and we could just, use the Batterskull as it was meant to be. I mean, as a 5-drop, because Mystic is just an awful draw once you have the Batterskull in hand or on the battlefield. We have enough playballs, and yeah, with one more equipment, and I would be fine playing the Stoneforge Mystic. I just don't believe it's super strong nor necessary here, and it's not a deck that needs the Batterskull on the battlefield very early. It's fine late game win condition. And I think it's gonna be that. Regarding the mana, well, we have more blue, but we need enough white, so it's probably just gonna be not that. Probably just 8/7, which is basically a 99. No, actually we have we have a Caracas, so I guess we can afford to play one more island. And now this is basically a 10/8 mana base plus the Signet. It should be pretty good. Alright, so that's the deck. Good old blue-white control. Not always something I want to play because it's not the most funny thing you can do, but it's still pretty sweet, and if anything we have a couple sweet draws potentially, and quite a powerful late game. So we'll see how it goes, but I hope you guys enjoyed the draft. Drop a like if it's the case. Thank you for watching, and see you for round uno.